she was great. We were my group was the first to have her, and she did great. I mean, when you go into anything, being the first one to do it.
All right, we're going to go ahead and get started with the meeting of the Regional Flood Control, Regional Transportation Commission.
Thanks, Commissioner. And members of the Commission, your first item is to conduct your first citizens participation period.
All right, this is the first time set aside for public comment. This time is limited to comments on items that are included on today's agenda. Those wishing to speak, please step forward to the microphone. Please state your name and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the first public comment period.
Thank you, Chairman. The next item is to approve the agenda. It is in order and ready for your approval.
All right, you get a motion?
Move to approve.
All right, there's a motion to approve the agenda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thanks, Chairman. The next item is to elect a chair and vice chair for this commission.
Mayor?
If I may, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to recommend that we repeat a winning group right now and recommend you continue on as chair. And Isaac, if you would, Mr. Barone, if you would continue on as vice chair.
I'm on.
All right, thank you, Mayor, for that
You didn't
nomination.
accept.
Oh, I accept the nomination, sorry. There's a motion on the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Congratulations.
Thank you all.
The next item is to receive the C report. And to begin with, I am happy to report that the RTC was recently awarded almost a $6 million grant from the U.S. Department of Transportation's RAISE program. And RAISE stands for Rebuilding American Infrastructure Through Sustainability and Equity. These planning funds will ensure RTC is able to complete the planning, alternatives analysis, the preliminary engineering, and environmental clearance phases for a transit study along Charleston Boulevard, as you know, one of our busiest transit routes and corridors. And it is a vital corridor in our region. The study will look at a 16.9-mile long future high-capacity transit line to help better connect our community. As many of you know, securing RAISE funds is an extremely competitive process. This year, more than $15 billion in funding was requested out of $2.2 billion available, which really underscores the great work our team did to secure this prestigious award. And I hope you'll join me in giving a round of applause. They do, our grants team does such a great job. We go after every grant that we can, and I think we've been pretty successful. So if anybody from the grant team is here, if you could stand up. They're busy looking for grants, so that's why they're not here. So, okay, moving on. Okay, next we'd like to recognize Jair Padilla. He's from our contractor, Silver State Transportation, and to present this item, we have a video with Deputy CEO Francis Julian.
Thank you, MJ. This month, we're celebrating an employee from Silver State Transportation, Jair Padilla. Jair is an amazing employee. He works at cleaning bus stops. He started about 7 years ago and quickly rose to the rank of supervisor. Silver State always gives water to give our passengers when it's hot outside, but Jair goes above and beyond and always goes and buys his own water when he runs out to make sure our customers are hydrated and cool at the bus stop. For that amazing, amazing initiative, let's go and celebrate him. Jair, hi. Hey Jair, I'm Francis Julian. On behalf of MJ Maynard, our CEO, and the Board of Commissioners, you won the Crystal Bus for this year for all the amazing work you do, giving water to our passengers and really caring for the system. So thank you so much. Here you go. Woo! And now you have the mic.
I have the mic. What a surprise. Thanks to everyone. Albert, Mark, for he trusts me. And yeah, the RTC, all you guys, Todd, my friend, and all the things we do together. So I try to be on top of everything. I'm a human. I got a lot of mistakes as well, and try to do myself the best every day. So thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Jair here. You can stand up, Jair. There he is. All right.
That is not an easy job. Thank you, Jair, for all that you do. Next, we would like to recognize Johanna Lovis and Conan DeMarco. They are part of the FAST team. They're our traffic engineering technicians from our Traffic Management Center. And to present this item, we have a video with Deputy CEO David Swallow.
Thanks, MJ. I'm here today with Jonathan Navarro of the Nevada State Police. We're here to celebrate the cooperative efforts between the RTC Fast Traffic Management operations technicians and law enforcement in intercepting a suspect last month. John, what can you tell us about this situation?
Well, during the event, it was a wrong way vehicle. We got many calls on a wrong way vehicle near the 95 in Charleston area. We were able to get visual with the cameras of the suspect, and then the suspect did ultimately do a U-turn and now head wrong way down the highway. Due to that U-turn, the troopers were no longer able to maintain visual, but with the cameras, we were able to track and update the troopers all the way to state line, and ultimately the suspect was apprehended.
Yeah, so we're here to recognize the outstanding efforts of Johanna Levis and Conan DeMarco, two of our traffic operations technicians who are able to maintain the visual contact and really guide state troopers to intercept the suspect and preserve the safety of the public. We're here today to recognize you both for your outstanding efforts last month in pursuit of a wrong-way driver and maintaining the visual contact, coordinating with law enforcement, really showing how RTC Fast and our traffic management team work together with first responders to resolve situations and preserve the safety of the public. So with that, Conan, I'd like to give you this award, recognizing you for your service. And likewise, Jojo. Great job, everyone.
I see him back there. If you could, if you're on.
I'm speechless and I'm very appreciative, and if it wasn't for my great coworkers and the great team and everybody at FAST, this wouldn't have been something that would have been possible. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for honoring me with this award. It kind of shows the work that we do here, and we appreciate all the support that we get from managers and upper management staff, and I just hope to continue everything we do every day. Thank you so much.
And Chairman, they are here, and I'll tell you, we received a really nice email from the Highway Patrol that said without their efforts, that I don't know if it would have been a successful outcome, so they really did a great job, and they are here today.
Thank you. Stand up, Johanna and Conan, so we can recognize you. Thank you.
Question.
Yes.
Through you, Mr. Chairman. What did we learn from that? I'm sure somebody inquired what was wrong with the driver starting down the wrong way in the beginning and then continuing. Was this something drug alcohol related or impairment of some sort? Do we have any information to help us address this better in the future? Can she come down? I'm sorry, so we can all hear. Because I think it's from these mistakes we learn so much. It's just like raising children, and sometimes, you know, we learn so much from each one of these incidents.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Teresa Gazer. I am the director of FAST. And I just want to let you know, while we don't have the specific outcomes to share regarding this particular case, because that is confidential with the Highway Patrol as they are doing their investigation, what I can tell you is throughout the last few years, we have been working very closely with the Nevada Department of Transportation, and they have put together a very comprehensive plan on wrong-way driver safety and are working through how that will be implemented in Southern Nevada, focusing on the highest priority ramps, knowing that there can be certain challenges possibly based on geometrics or access. And then with that, they will be participating in rolling out projects to make sure that wrong-way driver warning systems are implemented throughout the Southern Nevada region. They already have been, for a large portion, already been implemented in many Northern Nevada trials.
And do we, if I might, Mr. Chairman, just to continue the question, I know that we've already implemented in this city different solar-operated flashing lights. Are we trying anything of that nature, especially on the freeways? We're facing out to somebody who would be a wrong-way driver, that this sign, which is controlled, obviously, and energized by the sun, do we have that?
I couldn't say specifically to solar power, but the flashing lights is part of the warning systems going on. The biggest issue we're having right now is the supply chain to actually get them implemented. They were supposed to be put back up in March, but getting the actual ones here. So I presented on, I think, 2 or 3 meetings ago, just to say that that was the plan. There's 5 going in the area, and we'll continue working on to expand that.
Because the fatality rate obviously is unbelievable, and just need to do something sooner. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
No, I just wanted to, of course, congratulate your team. You know, in the past, we've seen so many instances of pursuits of suspects that have gone wrong, and people who have nothing to do, you know, with these pursuits, who are dragged, and sometimes their lives are changed, you know, horribly, and it costs so much. And so here we have a fine balance between, you know, police departments who they choose not to pursue and because of public safety concerns, and then on the other hand, people are not getting away. They're not evading the long arm of the law. Our investment here, the community's investment in RTC and in having the fast system here, obviously has brought in all sorts of other rewards. Just how much is one one individual's person's life? Just how much is a family's life worth? Here's the big benefit. Again, homeboy took off. He thought he could fight the law. The law is going to win. But it was a huge investment, and it's a big investment. But I think it's an investment again in our community. And again, I'm so happy that we find, you know, new ways that FAST is being implemented. Again, you know, to bolster public safety without being intrusive. So again, I'm very happy to see this outcome.
Thank you. We appreciate the partnership.
Thank you. So next, I'd like to play a video from our own board member, Chairman Justin Jones, who went undercover last month to check out the transit system. So let's take a look.
Hey, this is Justin Jones. I am going undercover chair on the RTC buses today. First stop is going to be on the Deuce, right on Las Vegas Boulevard. Let's see how it goes. Riding the Deuce, nice and air conditioned on here. Just jumped off the 109 bus here at level 0 at Harry Reid International Airport. I was talking to a TSA agent who uses RTC on a daily basis to get to his job here at the airport. He uses the Centennial Express a lot because it takes him straight here to the airport. And he says it's really convenient and the routes are constantly moving. So I had a really good experience.
So Chairman Jones, is there anything you want to add? I know you were out there for quite a while. That was just a short clip of the day that you spent out riding our system.
Yeah, it was fun. I was actually out there for 2 days, for several hours. I think I did 11 different routes over the course of those 2 days, and really it was a great experience. So the drivers were super courteous. There were 1 or 2 incidences where there were passengers who either didn't have fares or were otherwise being difficult, and the drivers really did a fantastic job of handling those situations with grace. Yeah, it was a great experience. I encourage any guys who have a couple hours to just get out there and ride the bus system and see on the ground what our fantastic team works with every day.
Awesome.
Mr. Chair, not to be a smart aleck, but are you actually going to give us like a report to your colleagues for your findings?
Well, no, like I said, I was on multiple routes. I think the one thing that I learned more than anything else is make sure when it's really, really hot out that you know how long it's going to be until the next bus comes. You can use the transit app, which is super helpful. I made the mistake in one of my planning to stand out on a very hot corner on Frank Sinatra for a little longer than I had anticipated, and so that was uncomfortable. But otherwise, it was really a great experience, and just grateful for the team. And I also was at both the Bonneville Transit Center a couple of times, and also at the South Strip Terminal. And so that was a great experience. I saw certainly our security team was out there, and our RTC team helping people who were getting on and off the bus.
Did anybody recognize you?
Nobody recognizes me anywhere.
Well, you just melt in, you know. You're like the everyman, you know, with their hat and the beard, and you're the everyman.
Great. Okay, so for the last item in this month's CEO report, Deputy CEO David Swallow will provide you with an update on the progress of our roadway funding, including fuel tax and sales tax.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I'm David Swallow, Deputy CEO for the record. I'd like to begin the first, this is a report on the fourth quarter of our fiscal year, so the last quarter, on the roadway projects that have been underway and the progress we've been making through your respective jurisdictions. As you can see here on the chart, this is the total number of projects by phase since beginning in 2014 when fuel revenue indexing began. You can see here we've made steady progress going through, in fact, accelerating over a number of years. To date, we've had 641 projects that have been contracted through this program, not just with fuel tax, but also sales tax, including 401 projects that have been completed, another 117 in construction, and 123 in design. When you look at the total dollars under contract, and this under contract is between the RTC in contracts with the jurisdictions, you can see we have over $2.5 billion to date under contract, with $2.2 billion of that coming from fuel tax and nearly $340 million in sales tax. Looking at under contract again, if you look at the revenue that has come in through the program, it's just under $2.5 billion, but we have over $2.5 billion in projects that we've committed to, with about $1.7 billion in expenditures. That's you paying the bills to the contractors, to the engineers, and everyone else that's participating in these projects. That's, more importantly, reflects the number of jobs that we estimated to see that have been created and sustained through the program. To date, about 16,000 jobs, or in this last year, we had nearly 2,000 jobs that were created or sustained with the fuel program. Now, this quarter, I'd like to highlight just some of the projects that were completed during the last quarter. That means they were constructed and we're getting ready to close them out. It does not speak to the hundreds of projects that are also underway by all the jurisdictions. So if I don't mention you, don't think your teams aren't doing a lot of work. Trust me, they are. When you look at City of Las Vegas completed Shadow Lane, Alta Drive to Charleston Boulevard, this is going through the Las Vegas Medical District. Fantastic project. You can see UNLV School of Medicine over there on the left, Valley Hospital on the right. This one, the improvements included widening sidewalks, repaving and restriping the roadway, adding dual-arm streetlights, which provide light to the sidewalk as well as to the roadway, shade trees, and enhanced pedestrian crossings. Total project cost is about $9.2 million. Over in the county, there were the addition of a number of traffic signals. 3 in particular that were completed this last quarter included at Paradise and Robindale Road, Durango and Badura, and Buffalo Drive at Badura. The images you see here are from Robindale and Paradise. The project wrapped up in March with a cost of approximately $3 million. I'd also like to point out that the roadway improvements, we typically include elements that also enhance pedestrian safety. Some of these include bringing curb ramps up to ADA standards, installing high-level pedestrian warning devices at crosswalks, upgrading streetlights for better visibility, and filling gaps in the pedestrian access routes. Next, I'd like to highlight the City of Henderson. With their latest roadway improvements on Via Nobila from Las Vegas Boulevard to Via Inspirada. This added approximately 3 miles of arterial roadway connecting residents of West Henderson to the Las Vegas Boulevard. The project wrapped up in May of 2023 at a cost of approximately $50 million. Right here, you can see the ribbon cutting with the mayor and a number of the key folks in there. Next, I'd like to highlight City of North Las Vegas. This is the Lamb Boulevard from Centennial Parkway to the 215. The improvements including the addition of 6 travel lanes, medians, drainage facilities, restriping, and new signage. The project wrapped up in May at a cost of approximately $7.7 million. Then over in Boulder City, ADA, meaning the Americans with Disabilities Act, improvements bringing the sidewalks up to standard where while the sidewalks have been constructed over the years, sometimes you get some heaving and other site conditions that pull them out of compliance. So the city of Boulder City went through, invested $1.1 million on removing trip hazards throughout the city, including leveling out at over 15,000 locations like you see here, pictured on the left. These improvements were brought existing pedestrian access routes up to ADA standards, making walking safer and more comfortable throughout the city. You can see in the map on the right just the extent of that. So a lot of work went into improving the pedestrian facilities there. These are just some of the key projects, but here are a number of projects that have been also completed throughout this past quarter from the various jurisdictions. With that, I'd like to move on to highlighting our capital improvement program, which you just approved last month that started our new fiscal year for FY 2024. This is our 10-year capital improvement program, and the funds are distributed by a formula that includes the proportion of population as well as assessed taxable value. You can see here kind of a percentage breakdown of how the funds are allocated to your respective jurisdictions. Looking at the total amount of funding available, we've allocated it based on those percentages, and it reflects about $2.2 billion in projects over the next 10 years. The active and future projects here by jurisdiction, you can see starting on the left with Boulder City, having 25 projects underway, to the county having over a couple hundred, moving all the way through Mesquite with nearly 50, all the way over to the RTC, which includes primarily stuff going to our FAST team for the traffic management efforts, a number of which are going to support what the cities and the county are doing to improve traffic signals, detection, and improve the communications network for our traffic management system.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Swallow, thank you. What has recently happened at the legislature with the fuel tax plan? How will it affect this?
The action, if you mean AB3...
Are these already funded?
These are already funded. These are already funded, and okay, the fuel revenue indexing is in place through the end of 2026.
Okay, so it's just the projections of what your plans are going forward that may be affected by the failure.
This includes the funding going forward if the fuel revenue indexing was not extended. We're not counting that now. Okay. So this is just status quo for today, and if it caps in 2026, these are all still funded.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, could you tell me how often you update your population count, which accounts for the distribution of this?
Yeah, I believe we update it every year. We get the population forecast from UNLV's Center for Business and Economic Research every year and update that along with the assessed values.
Thank you.
Okay. So I just want to make sure I highlight there are, I'm sorry, going to the next slide. The 10-year regional goals, you can see here, if you take the $2.2 billion and break it out into different categories, we have 4 main categories here. And you can see this is a breakdown by project type over the life of the 10-year plan. We're spending the majority of the funds on increasing safety for our vulnerable road users and maintaining existing transit infrastructure. However, I'd like to point out that over the next 10 years, there's more than $300 million programmed for reducing congestion on our roadways and improving multimodal connectivity. In addition to the roadway improvements, the 10-year program includes 25 projects specifically focused on those vulnerable road users, including people walking, riding their bike, and accessing transit. Some of these projects include pedestrian and bicycle bridges over roadways and washes, complete street projects to slow traffic and make it safe for all users, as well as doing ADA upgrades to improve mobility for residents who are using mobility devices or otherwise have some sort of physical condition that makes it a little tough to negotiate some of the hazards that are out there. These 25 projects are worth about $84 million in total. So with that, that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any other questions.
Any questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, thank you. Mr. Swallow.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. The next item on the agenda is to receive the Nevada Department of Transportation Director's Report with Director Larkin.
Good morning, everybody. I don't have a slide presentation today because I don't want to jinx it, but everything's relatively calm in my world this month, so it's going to be short. On the safety side, fatalities are currently down 14% from this time last year, so that's good news. Hope it continues to trend that way. The I-15 Tropicana Interchange Project, we just have, it's really just ongoing, the utility work and reconstruction next to the T-Mobile property and along Frank Sinatra. Frank Sinatra will still have the road down to single lane for the next month. And then also we did finish work on the Harmon Channel, but the lane restrictions will be in place until we have the protection devices in place. So a little bit longer there. The I-515 traffic restrictions, we have shifted the lane restrictions to the north, so primarily between Stephanie and Eastern going up. On the I-515 Charleston project, we're still on target to the completion of the westbound Charleston reconstruction, then we'll be switching to eastbound. So figure you're traveling that way. Head west next month, head east this month. And then just a short thing on the legislative outcomes. I know most of you are familiar with the AB 56, which is a hard shoulder running that authorizes certain permitted vehicles to travel on the shoulder for more than 200 feet, basically legalizing a practice that's already in there. But it also, working with RTC, it will also allow some accommodation for transit buses. And then this isn't really in the heart of Las Vegas, but SB 110, as you're going out, we will be having daytime running lights required on all state 2-lane highways throughout the state. It is a proven safety method mitigation, but so when you're leaving the area, just be prepared that it will be daylight headlights. And then last, just a slight thing, and this is really more for RTC, we do have new leadership at the Federal Highway Administration. Sue Klecker has taken on another position, and Rodney Whitfield is the acting division administrator, and Amy English is the new deputy division administrator. And if you haven't already met her, we will make sure that we have introductions and start working together there. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Director. Any questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairman. The next item is to approve the consent agenda, which consists of items 6 through 41 and can be taken in one motion.
All right, I'll entertain a motion. All right, there's a motion to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Excellent. Agenda item 42 is to receive a presentation from our Deputy CEO, Angela Castro, on the 2023 legislative session.
Thank you, MJ. Good morning, members of the board. For the record, Angela Castro, Deputy CEO with the RTC. Before we get started, I want to first personally thank you for your leadership, vision, and guidance throughout this session, and also extend a really big thank you to your GA team and contracted lobbyists. We worked very closely with them to understand various positions and impacts on bills, and with your help and their help, we were able to successfully navigate the session. I would also like to recognize and thank the RTC legislative team for all their hard work this session. I've had the privilege to lobby on your behalf and on behalf of the RTC for 5 sessions, so over a decade. And I have to say I'm very proud of this legislative team. They've traveled up to Carson City over 120 days, or they've been home and watched many hearings, and their passion, their vision, their strategy, their guidance, and their teamwork really got us through this session. And so before I begin to give you this snapshot of what they've accomplished, they're here today, everybody except Kelsey, and I just want them to stand so we can recognize them. Come on. It was an extremely challenging session, but we pivoted and we got creative when needed. Over the 120 days and a couple of special sessions, our team worked tirelessly to review, analyze, and collaborate with key stakeholders on legislative measures that impacted the agency and transportation in Southern Nevada. Today's presentation is just a quick snapshot of the team's work. Session by the numbers. I would first like to highlight the sheer number of bills that the staff had to process and track. During this session, this team reviewed more than 1,200 bill draft requests, actively tracked the status of more than 130 bills throughout the entire session, and provided support testimony for more than a dozen bills. One of these bills, a handful of measures that we monitored and supported as high priority, were signed into law. Here's a snapshot of some of those bills that we monitored. Senate Bill 247, which revised the establishment of regional planning coalitions. Assembly Bill 56, which allows certain vehicles, which Tracy had mentioned, including public buses, to use designated paved shoulders of highways where signage permits. And Assembly Bill 214, which makes various changes to the RTC's enabling statute regarding committee administration and record keeping. Additional bills signed into law that we supported include benefits and changes made to work-based learning, streamlining the federal grant process, studies surrounding hydrogen projects in the state, and college and career readiness efforts to support our diverse workforce. RTC legislation, Senate Bill 17, was RTC's housekeeping bill that was heard in the Senate Committee on Government Affairs and the Assembly Committee on Growth and Infrastructure. The bill language originally included changes to NRS 277A, including making updates to the Bus Shelter and Bench Advisory Committee, the Yellow Dot Program, and transit security. However, the bill was amended to remove language on transit security as we experienced political, financial, and logistical challenges this session. The safety of both our contractors and riders is and will remain a priority. We know that this is important to you, our drivers, and our transit riders. We plan to regroup this session to address the challenges and oppositions that we face this session. And moving forward, we will create an effective strategy that includes additional research and possibly developing a working group to determine how to best advance transit security for the next session. Outside of transit security, the overall intent of this bill was to potentially use it as a vehicle to address our funding issues if transit funding was not included in another bill. Since we were able to secure state funding on transit in another bill, we decided not to pursue Senate Bill 17. Finally, on transportation funding, with your support, we went in this session with the expectation to address sustainable transportation funding. On the roadway side, we spent a significant portion of the legislative session on Assembly Bill 359, which would have enabled Clark County to extend the fuel revenue indexing program. This bill would have generated approximately $1.2 billion in critical roadway funding. We educated legislators on the need for this bill. We presented in both legislative committees. In the end, we received bipartisan support in both chambers of the legislature. The bill, however, was ultimately vetoed by the governor. The governor's veto message listed several reasons, but including the need to identify a more equitable funding source for roadways that captures electric vehicles. During this session, we were also engaged with legislators, the governor's staff, and key stakeholders in discussions around electric vehicle fees to support roadway funding. Those efforts did not progress beyond the brainstorming phase, but the governor's office has signaled an interest in continuing this work throughout the interim with an opportunity to pursue legislation in the 25 session. On the transit side, we also worked with legislators throughout the session to communicate the dire need for additional transit funding in order to maintain our existing transit service. I'm happy to report that Senate Bill 341, which was amended at the final hour, included $5 million over the biennium to support public transit in Southern Nevada. This new revenue source establishes a historic precedent of the state providing financial support for transit operations, as majority of the states do in the country. The need for additional funding continues to grow, and now that the legislative session has concluded, we will schedule meetings with key legislators and stakeholders in the interim, and will continue to advance the agency's goals to build on our relationships with key lawmakers and start to lay the groundwork for the 2025 session. We look forward to continuing to work with you, key stakeholders, during the interim, and thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Castro. Questions or comments? Councilman?
Excuse me, that veto by the governor on the fuel tax index, how bad is that going to hurt us in future years?
So the good news is that we have one more session. The fuel revenue indexing program does not expire until 2026. And so we plan to come before you next legislative session with an agenda. The goal is actually on the electric vehicle front. We are working very closely with the Nevada Department of Transportation and other key stakeholders to determine how that will be addressed. It could include it, it could be separate. It's really premature to figure out how we're going to address that.
Ms. Larkin-Thompson, sorry, did you have a comment on that? Sorry.
I was just going to add that there are two efforts going on here. One is actually looking at the various ways you can actually meet up a group that's looking at potential alternative there. And DOT is also working with DMV directly on the technical aspects. Like, what do you actually need to do to your software system? What do you actually need to do with positions, so that as we move forward, we can put a strategic plan that can actually be implemented. And that actually, our first meeting will be next week.
Okay, good to know. Councilman Shaw?
As I listen to this presentation and I review our budgets and our projections, it's very apparent to me that funding in the future is going to be very difficult. We were groundbreaking in that we got $5 million. We needed 40, and we got 5. So I think it behooves us as a board to recognize that, number one, and number two, to take immediate steps to try to fill in that gap. Yes, we do have another legislative session come up. If we're not successful in that legislative session, we're up against the wall. We can't pay our bills. So I think we need to start looking at alternatives to help support this. I think one of the things that, frankly, the county needs to take a lead on is we need to look at an impact fee for Lyft and Uber. You can look at our ridership, and the second those guys came into town, it dropped dramatically. What, I think 30%, something like that. And that impacts public transportation, and they should pay an impact fee per ride to help support this program. So I think we've got to move very quickly to start to implement some additional revenue programs that will help us, along with continuing to work with the legislature, which we really need to work on.
I agree 100%. I wish the county had the ability to raise fees. They do not, and that was what Ms. Castro and her team were working on.
I'm sorry, how do they do that? Because other communities do that all the time.
We are subject to the legislature for all of our powers, unfortunately, just like the cities are. And so we don't have the ability to raise fees for Uber and Lyft without the legislature.
Well,
And I
then
would
we,
like to make it.
we ought to get on the legislative agenda, because we need to do something. And it's clear that we're not going to get it from the legislature, I think.
And I will just say, this is expressing the frustration across the board, is understanding the governor's position generally in his election, et cetera. But when you lay down a law that says that you will not raise any taxes, it makes it really hard even to pass down that authority to the county or to the cities. If you don't have that ability, then you don't have funding. And that's the frustration we're at. And I know Ms. Castro and her entire team and MJ, we're going to be spending the next 2 years trying to forge those relationships because like you said, we're in a bad spot. So, Councilman.
Thank you, Chair. And I don't want to put you on the spot, so if you don't have an answer, I'm happy to go offline or maybe in the next meeting. But with this conversation and then the discussion around the RISE grant earlier, which is amazing, and how much money we're able to look at studying the Charleston corridor, how does this impact the study of Charleston and what the impacts of transit will look like along the Charleston corridor. And then the other part of that would be how does this impact what we're planning for the BRT along the Maryland Parkway corridor up through the medical district.
So Councilman, that's a great point. Certainly this grant will allow us to start the work that we would need to do to set ourselves up for success in the future. So the funding is not there today to implement high-capacity transit potentially. Certainly, as you know, you've seen our financials, our expenditures over revenues, that begins in 2026. We face a dire fiscal forecast. Just in the first 3 years of that deficit, it's over $231 million. And so the grant's great. We get to get a lot of the work out of the way so that if we are successful in identifying a future funding source, we'll be ready to go in terms of enhancing and adding high-capacity transit, all the other improvements that are part of the study.
I think that's just important to point out because it's easy, especially sitting in this seat, to tell all the constituents that great things are being planned, but if there's no funding to implement them, then it's really disappointing at the end of the day. So that's something that we need to take into consideration, and just as we communicate with the community around what's possible.
Understood, yep.
Thanks.
Mayor? I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, I keep listening to these comments over these years, and what absolutely appalls me is Nevada is one of 4 states in the entire country that only meets every other year, our legislative body. And what that does to us till the next session is called, yes, we're going to work on it, but there's no immediacy of action anywhere. And you look at other states, not only could we be party to that and be much more current and answer some of these financial questions if we grew up and were a state that had a legislative group that met every year, even with an active full-time office, where those of us who represent different municipalities or different parts of the government in the state had an avenue to make an appeal and get things started. I find it appalling that we are being crippled this way because the action trickles down to every resident, and we just go along letting it happen, and we need to be more proactive in this. I find it absolutely appalling that this fuel revenue tax generation might, and that we haven't resolved the battery-operated electric vehicles, haven't resolved that issue. This has been ongoing for 5 years. What's happened? And so this is a time for the voice of the public to speak out. It's yours. It trickles right on down to you. And so I'm just very hopeful that, you know, how we conduct ourselves, and this is our state, and all of us put into it and have made it home or were born here. It's up to us to make our voices heard. This is a service that's being provided, and to be struggling so hard for every dollar, and whether it's in safety and security or maintaining striping on the streets, for heaven's sakes, you almost kill yourself because, whoops. Now I can.
Now you're breaking our stuff.
I have one of these in my office drawer, I want you to know. Thank you. I think somebody was talking to me. Enough, good man. Thank you.
All right, Mayor Hardy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think realistically, the fuel tax indexing, if it were extended, would not be a new tax. And I think that is an important message that we need to share with potential legislators or returning legislators. The reality is we can make a case for that, and I think it's going to go through the legislature probably potentially easier than it will be the populace in general. As we look at it, we can make a good case for doing the kinds of things that we need to do, and I think that behooves us to take that role and talk with legislators and potential legislators.
I agree. Also returning governors, though, because the legislatures we had bipartisan support on. So.
Actually, yeah, Chairman, I guess what I take from this, again, our legislature, both the Assembly and the Senate came through for us. You know, they came through for the community on this one. Unfortunately, we're unable to convince the governor. Although I kind of, although I do not agree, of course, with his veto, he is giving us a clear message that there is an inequity that we see here with gasoline-powered vehicles, powering most of this, and we really should do something to look at. Hey, EV vehicles, they are, they're becoming more and more predominant. I can't believe that I'm actually considering, getting one myself. But we still don't have a good mechanism to figure out, how that's going to be, how that's going to be factored into all of this. And I guess the governor does have a point on that. And of course, to the councilman's concern, there's a few business entities who are easily, they're sucking the profits right out of our community without reinvesting anything. And unfortunately, when we go back to legislature, remember, those legislators are going to be within reach of those tech companies. And tech companies, they spend a lot of money across the country, billions of dollars, I think, probably, because they reap a lot more in the long run. That being said, we don't have to necessarily even... I think we'll be able to convince. I think we as a community are going to be able to convince, the governor, especially if we have a new way to measure. I'm an optimist. I'm a teacher, so I am an optimist. I do believe we will be able to convince the governor next time through, and I think we will have legislative help again on this time. But as everyone has pointed out, especially our esteemed colleague here, we should have a plan B. Hey, we're going to do a ballot measure, and we have one thing about generally here in Clark County. Clark County residents have proven time and time again that they're willing to pony up for things that are a public concern. We've gone around the legislature and passed measures in the past to fix up our schools. We've done it not once but a couple of times. So again, we want to. Although it is very. I'm not ready to go ahead and plan for the worst, but definitely have a plan going forward to where we can just go around them anyhow, and ask our Clark County residents to go ahead and see if they're willing to pony up, and I'm pretty sure that they will, especially when we make the case, that this is something that's going to really affect the viability. Just think, if people can't get to work, from north of Vegas into Las Vegas or the Strip, that impacts, right? If people are stuck, in traffic because we're not reinvesting in a road system, right? People they're going to be upset, and they're going to be willing to reinvest. So let's again, I think we will have the support next time, and I have every confidence that our legislative lobby team will come through for us. Let's go ahead and keep that in our back pocket, though. There are other measures that we can resort to if need be. And I think I've said more than enough.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other comments? Thank you, Ms. Castro, and your entire team for the tremendous efforts up at the legislature. I know that in the next couple months we're going to be reconvening the track committee, which has always been very beneficial in bringing together a lot of key stakeholders in our community, and they're going to be instrumental in this effort over the next 2 years to really talk about both roadway funding and transit funding.
Thanks, Commissioner. I definitely want to note the extreme effort by Angela and her team. I have a front row seat as I watch, Angela spent a lot of time away from her family up in Carson City, as did members of Team RTC and our outside lobby team. They did a tremendous job. I don't know enough people know just how hard it is, and the strategy and the time and the effort, and Angela and her team were just extraordinary. So I want to say thanks and recognize all your good work. So agenda item 43 is to receive information from our legal counsel. There is nothing to receive today, so we can move on to your final agenda item, which is to conduct your last citizens participation period.
Thank you. This is the second time set aside for public comment. Anyone wishing to provide public comment, please step forward to the microphone, state your name, and limit your comments to 3 minutes. We have Shelley Jones.
Good morning. My name is Shelley Jones, And I have a couple things I wanted to say, good and bad. First, the bad. I was really upset to hear on the news that somebody was stabbed 37 times on the regular fixed route. The second thing is, my friend who is blind, who was attacked on the paratransit, I'm sorry to say, but MB Insurance is a joke. Offering her $500? What a slap in the face that is. On the good side, I want to commend the person, whoever thought of the YouServe program. It's great. I love it. RTC On Demand is a wonderful program as well. And so are a lot of the paratransit drivers. And the drivers that I used to know that drove the fixed route buses are great. Then I had a little bit of sight. I have no sight now. But on the other hand, I also want to mention a friend of mine. She's going to be 100 years old on the 25th of this month, and they're having a special party for her at the Blind Center. How many people do you know there are turning 100? Not too many. I think it's great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Dorothy Barnes?
How are you all today? Dorothy Barnes. I thank you all for giving me this opportunity to come before you all, and it's very sad that I'm being horsewhipped continually. I love Shreveport, Louisiana. I grew up in my hometown and love my hometown. As a child, I attended Sunday school every Sunday. My mother couldn't go to church. She sent me with my godmother, and I grew up in church to love everybody. And I joined the military after high school in 1975. Did 3 years. I was a cook in the military. I didn't face the racism and discrimination until I got back home. And I went to a large white congregational church. I was sent. And I didn't see this thing that Dr. King talked about and marched about. And at one time, we didn't have black police officers in Shreveport. And he came and marched, and we had black police officers, but they wasn't allowed a full privilege of an officer. But I won't hold you all day. My main point, I was hired as a narcotics agent by the CIA, British Commonwealth. Not often does Great Britain come to this country to fool with people, especially a Negro. And yeah, they did that. And I was not allowed to answer my protocol. I was not allowed to get my credentials, my badge and credentials, to bust up what I had been used to sponsor without my permission. The Ku Klux Klan is known as a white supremacist, white separatist group, Grand Dragons and Imperial Wizards. And they're very well known around my hometown. They come out of Harrisonburg, Arkansas, which is one of their headquarters, besides Vidor, Texas, and Forsyth County, Georgia. These people I didn't never meet and experience this thing until I became an adult. I saw it on the news, on TV, but I didn't know what they were really all about. And they let me know to this day, the ones that are horsewhipping me. They would not let me take on my duty as a narcotics agent to answer the protocol to England. They have shown me so much hate. I wasn't always on this roll later. I can't buy my health back or my reputation back. These people have hurt me and my family and others so, putting people on drugs, fentanyl. They put my doctor, who's from the Philippines here, work for UMC, on the drug. And no doctor should be forced or tricked into taking that kind of drug. It takes away your reputation. I'm around senior citizens that's FEMA. I have to see them put children, old people, disabled people on drugs to steal their money, their Social Security, and their retirement checks. It's just sad what greed will make people do to destroy people's lives. Every day I live with this. I don't want to attend meetings because they drain me of my intelligence. I'm too exhausted to attend meetings. Sometimes I take vitamins and iron. My health is no good. I turned 66 last month by God's grace. And I still love everybody, even those people that's hurting me, because we have to as Christians. Thank you. God bless you. I hope something can be done to stop this drug trafficking and things that's destroying everybody's life. This drug is destroying everybody I know. Fentanyl and all these old people, they just want to enjoy the rest of their days on earth. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you, Ms. Barnes. Anyone else wishing to provide public comment? Seeing none? Oh, sorry.
Good morning, members of the board. I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm Kevin Schubert. I'm the Vice President of Special Projects with Transdev. I'm joined by our COO, Susan Sweat. And I just want to express our appreciation for the opportunity to work with the RTC and deliver on behalf of a great product to the residents of Southern Nevada. So thank you very much for this opportunity. Look forward to working with you all.
Thank you. We appreciate being here. Anyone else wishing to provide public comment? Seeing none, we are going to close public comment and we are adjourned.